if when I die y'all have the audacity to bury me in anything except like Helena-inspired makeup, I'm gonna come back from the dead and haunt you all. Hello ladies, gents, and non-binary mates, and welcome back to Beauty in the Bookcase, where we take a book and we make a look. Now, before we get started, make sure you follow me here, here, and right over here, just to keep up with everything I'm doing while I'm not on YouTube. You know him, you love him. The author of this graphic novel is none other than emo king Gerard Way. So, Way rose to fame with his band My Chemical Romance, and their last hurrah, an album by the name of Danger Days, The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, is actually a prelude to the story we're covering today. So the 2010 album actually follows the Killjoys, who each one is represented by a different band member. So Gerard Way is Party Poison, Frank Iero is Fun Ghoul, Mikey Way is Cobra Kid, and Ray Toro is Jet Star. And they are this group of vigilantes who are taking care of this mysterious girl who you can see in the music videos. So the Killjoys were essentially a group of vigilantes who were protecting this mysterious girl who ends up being the lead for our story today. And they're also trying to fight off Dracoloids and really just bring down this major corporation known as Better Living Industries, or Blind. So darken your clothes and strike a violent pose, because we are diving in to the true lives of the Fabulous Killjoys.
It's time to do it now and do it loud. Killjoys, make some noise.
So our story takes place 10 years after the Killjoys have been killed off. And it's important to know that they were kind of this big symbol of hope for a lot of people. Obviously their deaths were a big deal. And we are now finally starting to get the story of how the girl, which is her, like the character's name is the girl. I'm not just calling her the girl. So we're figuring out how the girl learns to navigate the world without the Killjoys there to protect her. The story takes place in Battery City in California, and it starts off with the girl going in search of food. You need to know is that this is kind of a post-apocalyptic kind of world, so you know, weird things are happening. There's a lot of food rationing and a lot of very strict instructions, especially pertaining to kind of like audio and music and that type of stuff, which is really obviously very interesting coming from Way's background as a musician. So one day while she is out searching for food, she is at this like shop. I don't know, it looked like a gas station shop to me, but whatever. She's at a shop and she comes across Party Poison's mask. So they like sold kind of like random knickknacks here. And so she ends up trading the food that she'd gotten for this mask. However, she doesn't really get to really sort of savor the moment of her fallen heroes, because these kids, these older kids called the Ultra V's, actually end up taking it from her, and they recognize her as the girl that the Killjoys were protecting. Now, another really interesting kind of tie-in to the album is that the story is narrated by Dr. Death-Defying, which if you're familiar with the Danger Days album, he's kind of like the voice that comes in between the interludes.
Look alive, sunshine.
And another really cool thing then is you do have references to different parts of the story that's told in the albums in the comic book. So it's really interesting and kind of like perfect for your little emo nostalgia. So aside from the girl, there are a few major plot points. One of that being Val Velocity and his group of, I don't know, vigilante wannabes. They're kind of trying to take the place of the Killjoys, and they're called the Ultra V's, and they're kind of just like the ones that take in the girl and help her get to where she needs to be, because this is, in Gerard Way's words, a coming-of-age story. So we do have that. And then there is the story of Blue and Red, who are two sex worker robots called porno droids in this world, and kind of their attempt to escape the city and kind of be free from the Blind Corporation's power, and obviously from the exploitation that they're facing. And then the last one is Korse, who is kind of a trained assassin who is, let's just say he's breaking out of his programming. So let's start off by talking about the girl. So a common critique that I did see quite often about this story was that the main character, the girl, we don't really see much of her. Not literally, she's probably in most of the panels, but she doesn't really talk a lot. She's not very vivacious or outspoken. She's not taking up the persona and the kind of liveliness of certain main characters, but you know, she's actually quite indecisive, and a lot of people end up actually having to guide her in her journey to figuring out what her role is and why she was so important to the Killjoys to begin with. But I think what people are seeing as a flaw is actually on purpose. I mean, this is a coming of age story after all, so think about it. You know, being a teenager or a young adult is already hard enough as it is, but add the pressure of feeling like you're supposed to be somebody important, knowing and being told by everyone that you're supposed to be this kind of like messiah or this prophet that's going to save everyone. Plus, your parents died, and now the people who were protecting you also died. So it's a lot to take in, and you probably would feel very overwhelmed at having to make any type of decision or really making any type of bold choice that could impact the way that people see you. And it's very interesting because while most of the people in the story are super convinced that yes, she's this super important person and she's here to like save everyone and she's going to be the one to take down the Blind Corporation because that's what the Killjoys obviously saw in her, Val Velocity is really quick to kind of cut through that and just be like, nah, I don't think this girl is special at all, and basically suggest that the Killjoys died in vain. And while this might seem super harsh, I think it's a really good reflection of what she was already feeling. I mean, she must have felt a lot of guilt after the Killjoys died, and you know, being unable to figure out what made her so special is obviously adding to that stress, because now she really also feels that the Killjoys did indeed die in vain trying to protect her, and she is just a nobody. Honestly, I think having such a meek main character really does a great job of contrasting with who she ends up being at the end and what's revealed about why she's so special. And if you think about it, Gerard Way is just following the formula. I mean, think about any coming of age story, and the main character is always kind of just meek and very quiet and shy and unsure of themselves until they find their group of friends that empower them to be who they are or help them figure out who they are. Like literally, think about any YA story. You know, you have The Perks of Being a Wallflower, you know, you have with Charlie, you have Paper Towns. All those books have a lead that's actually quite shy and reserved, even if you think about things like Twilight, you know, and it's all about them kind of going through the process of growing up and figuring out who they're meant to be. And I think that our character, you know, I think that the girl really embodies that really well. Plus, I also think having her be so kind of like understated and almost like easy to forget in the beginning is in perfect contrast to who the Killjoys were, and serves to really drive home the disappointment that a lot of people, especially the Ultra Vs, especially Val Velocity, were feeling, you know, coming off of the high of who the Killjoys were. Got foundation on my pants. Got foundation on my pants. But if you're looking for more vivacious main characters from Gerard Way, that's what the Umbrella Academy is for, which I have reviewed all 3 books that have come out so far in these 3 videos, so I'm going to put them somewhere around here so you can check those out. Right, but speaking of vivacious characters, let's talk about the Ultra Vs. The Ultra Vs are... I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with them. I mean, I get where Val is coming from. You know, he's kind of your dark and mysterious character who's always broody and being dramatic, which fits the emo scene to a T. Me every day. And then the other ones are actually, they're very fun, you know, they're very like fashion focused, which I think is interesting. They're very, very lively, they're very fun, but I do feel like at times they do come off a bit inconsiderate of what the girl has experienced, and Val particularly is very closed off, which at times just makes it really, really hard to deal with him, because he's just kind of a bit of a jerk at times. But I think that's the point, you know, we need those flawed characters. Nobody wants a story where everyone's perfect, because that's just super boring. So, as I said, the Ultra Vs are kind of an offshoot, or like, you know, the Dollar Tree version of the Killjoys. So they're trying to do what the Killjoys were doing by kind of exterminating Draculoids and fighting, you know, Scarecrow and Blind and all that type of fun stuff. And it's really interesting because they've come to a place in their lives where most of them are really unfazed by death. You know, they just kind of go like, oh, well, that's just another person we lost. And that's really heavy. That's a very heavy thing to face, I think, at such a young age. So a lot of them, except for Val, as usual, always the outlier, they believe in this deity called the Phoenix Witch. So that's kind of how they get, you know, how they cope with all the death that happens around them. They trust that everybody who dies goes up to the Phoenix Witch and is so much better and protected by her. But for Val, the deaths are really hard because he doesn't believe in any type of afterlife. So he's just kind of like, this person was really young, I could have saved them, I didn't, and now they're just gone. They just don't exist. And so the death of his friends is really emotional for him, but he'd never tell you that.
Like, I'll keep all my emotions right here, and then one day I'll die.
I'd say for the most part, the Ultra Vs don't really add much to the story other than just kind of having that comedic relief and, you know, kind of being there as an homage to the original Killjoys. And they're pretty fun. Like I said, you know, there's like a whole sequence where they give the girl a makeover, which is so ridiculous. And they're always kind of like, do these pants make me look fat? And like, they're very concerned about their appearance, which is funny given what they're doing. Like, they're so flippant about it. You know, they kind of talk like normal teenagers, even though they're going out and like killing evil assassin machines. So, but they do actually serve a purpose. As I said, they're kind of there to guide the girl and help her see whether she's going to follow a violent or a non-violent path. And it's also just interesting seeing how, you know, the huge contrast between these characters who are so lively and rambunctious and loud, and she's so quiet. In the end, the Ultra Vs, despite not being, you know, your cliche traditional wholesome group of friends and being more like murderous teenagers who are always ready for a fight, but they need to pick a sick outfit out first, you know, they do serve as a bit of found family for the girl. And I think she obviously needed that. She needed to find a place of belonging so that she could feel comfortable and safe enough to figure out who she is and kind of unleash what was inside of her all along. I think my only issue really with the Ultra Vs was with how quick Val had a change of heart. I don't know. I think, I just feel like there should have been a bit more of a lead up of Val warming up to the girl and sort of not seeing her as the enemy in a way anymore, because it is kind of abrupt when he just goes like, okay, I'm cool with you now. I think, you know, the Killjoys were right about you and whatever. You know, I just think it was very abrupt. So I do wish that we would have had a little bit more interactions between them that weren't just him being like, I hate this girl. The Killjoy should be here and she should be dead, to then being like, yeah, this girl's cool. You know, there just needed to be something in between for me to really connect with it. Just want y'all to know that I was like, what highlighter screams death? And I was like, white. And that brings us to the last two main plots of the story, Blue's story and Korse's story. And it's really interesting because despite the fact that, you know, our main character is the girl and we spend a lot of time with her and the Ultra Vs, I'd say these two side stories kind of steal the show. And they're just written in such a compelling way that you can't help but care for these characters and want to see them get out of Battery City and get out of like the different metaphorical prisons that they're stuck in and really find happiness. They both kind of have these forbidden relationships. So Blue is seeing another porno droid. I hate calling them that. But she's seeing another sex working robot called Red. And then Korse is just seeing a man, just a regular man. He's no one, I don't think he's anyone like special or anything. But, you know, both of them kind of really come off as these victims of capitalism and of this like evil corporation that has taken over Battery City and kind of run everyone's lives to their benefit. They really do spend the book in search of their freedom, and they're kind of these symbols of anarchy and rebellion that I think people needed after the Killjoys were gone. So let's start off with Blue and Red. Honestly, I love these two. They are so wholesome, and you're just going to root for them to be able to be together. It's a very complicated situation that they find themselves in. So Red is kind of an older model of these droids. So, you know, her parts aren't being made anymore. And, you know, that means that if they catch her, like if Blind gets a hold of her, they're gonna like destroy her, which obviously would be awful for her and for Blue, because, you know, they're in love. They wouldn't be able to be together. She wouldn't have her life anymore. So it's kind of Blue's mission to be able to get into Blind and have them give her the part that she needs so that she can replace what is going on with Red and fix her so they can continue to be together and escape Battery City. However, if you've ever been to a government office, you know how inefficient they are. So it's no different in Battery City. Blue goes in and waits in the super long line. She finally gets there. They're like, yeah, we can't help you. You have to go talk to somebody else and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, there's no part. They're going to go find Red and they're going to like discontinue her. In other words, they're going to kill her. And I think what's really, really interesting about these two is that their emotions are so real and raw and vulnerable despite not being human that you can't help but empathize with them. And, you know, a big thing in their life then becomes that Destroya, who is this like robot god, who is like the coolest freaking robot you'll ever see in your life. You know, they really just keep hoping, right, that they're going to be able to get out of this situation because Destroya is going to come and free them. And, you know, but even though they have this hope and this faith that Destroya is going to come and save them, they still want to get out of Battery City. I think, you know, of course, there's a lot of trauma there for both of them. And to them, you know, finally getting out of Battery City means that they're going to be able to be their authentic selves, even though they're going to die, because essentially there's like no electricity outside of Battery City, hence the name. And I think there's just such a hopelessness in their story that really just makes you, again, it really makes you want to root for them and see them be happy and get what they want, because they're in a place where they genuinely believe that getting out of Battery City and dying is better than continuing to live the lives that they have. And towards the end then, you know, Blue does manage to connect with Destroya and get Destroya's help, and it's awesome. I'm going to save that for you so that you can enjoy it as much as I did, because it was the best. And that brings us to Korse. So as I said earlier, Korse is a trained assassin. He's like 5, so he's, except, you know, without the time travel powers, but he's kind of like somebody who was taken in and experimented on, and that's why he's so powerful, but he's kind of just been trained to be a killing machine, which, you know, I mean, you do you, but probably don't be a killing machine. Don't be an assassin. I think it might sound cheesy, like, you know, if I were just being kind of like, oh, Korse manages to get out of this, like, line of work because he finds love. I don't think, I mean, he does, and it's very cute, but I don't think that it's that simple. You know, I don't think it was just kind of like, love will save us all kind of thing. Gerard Way really did a good job of sort of carrying the importance of having a healthy support system and being able to feel, you know, by having a robot and a killing machine both feel. He is like a human, by the way. He's not an actual machine, since there's actually machines. And anyway, the point is, right, he manages to not go through a cheesy route by not making it so much about just the two of them being in love with different people, but by them kind of accepting these very human emotions despite their programming. So with Korse then, while he is in love, and that's all beautiful, what really speaks to me about his story is that it wasn't that he fell in love that really kind of helped deprogram him, but the fact that he could feel anything at all. You know, the number one thing to being a killing machine is you can't have any type of emotion. So the ability to still feel years after being programmed to be this killer is freaking mind-blowing for him, and it's really what ends up being able to free him, is his ability to be like, I can still be human and I can still be better and I don't have to be tied down to this corporation. But yes, as somebody who doesn't really read graphic novels very often, you know, I think I'd read a few here and there, but the first ones that I really committed to had been the Umbrella Academy series and now this. I think my biggest problem with them is I do feel that it's very hard to establish a very fleshed out story because you're so limited, and I think that's something that obviously comes with time and practice. So I'm sure, you know, people who have been doing this forever you know, are fantastic at really being able to tell you a full story in just a few pages, and it's perfect, and you're not kind of like, I feel like there's things missing. But I really didn't feel that there was anything terribly incomplete. I did feel that it was a little bit rushed towards the end with the girl figuring out who she is. I do wish that had been a little bit built up a little bit better, and then the issue I mentioned with, you know, Val kind of changing his mind super quickly. But really, I think, you know, there is a full enough story, and you don't really need to have kind of the Danger Days background to understand it, which I think helps. But it's obviously, you know, even more enjoyable if you are familiar with the album. And that said, I do know that Gerard Way I think he just released the first part of kind of like a prequel to this, so it's kind of in between Danger Days the album and then The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoy California, which is what we've covered today. He's gonna have like a story that actually revolves around the Killjoy, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what we get to know about them and how that's gonna add to the story that we have now. Is it gonna fix any like plot holes or, you know, stuff like that? I think it'll be really interesting to get to see the Killjoys in action as well, because I loved them so much. You know, if you are a fan of the album and a fan of the band, I think this is definitely a must read, because you're gonna get all that kind of nostalgia and those good emo feelings. So what's it all about? At its core, I think The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys California is a story that really empowers the meek, the lowly, and the powerless. You know, every character starts off being very afraid and kind of condemned by blind and the circumstances that they're in, but they manage to actually connect to their emotions, which they've kind of shut off for so long, and really use them to empower themselves instead of running from them. So what did you guys think about this book? Let me know down in the comments below, and also if you have any suggestions for graphic novels, do let me know, because I'm kind of interested in kind of doing something that I'm not reading only because it was written by like one of my favorite musicians. I've definitely been thinking about doing Neil Gaiman, so if you have any suggestions, let me know. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like these. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you know exactly when I upload next. And so long and good night.